Okay, hello, Elizabeth here. I found somewhere to read. I'm in a motorcycle shop. So, anyways, no one's in here except River, the dog. So, chapter 9. Uh, Be- Bacchides? Here I go, huh? Bacchides the alchemist invade Judea again. In the meantime, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his army had fallen in battle, he sent again Bacchides and Alchemius into Judea, the right wing of his army with them, and they took the road that leadeth to Galgal, and they camped in Masaloth, which is in Arbela, and they made themselves masters of it and slew many people. In the first month of the 142nd year, they brought the army of Jerusalem, and they rose and went to Berea with 20,000 men and 2,000 horsemen. Judas' bravery. Now Judas had pitched his tents in Lycia, and 3,000 chosen men with him. And they saw the multitude of the army, that there were many, and they were seized with great fear, and many withdrew themselves out of the camp. And there remained of them no more than 800 men. And Judas saw that his army slipped away, and the battle pressed upon him, and his heart was cast down, because he had no time to gather them together, and was discouraged. When he said to them that remained, Let us raise and go against our enemies, if we may be able to fight against them. But they dissuaded him, saying, We shall not be able, but let us save our lives now and return to our brethren, and then we will fight against them, for we are but few. Then Judas said, God forbid we should do this thing and flee away from them. But if our time is come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our glory. Judas dies in battle. And the army removed out of the camp, and they stood over against them. And the horsemen were divided into two troops, and the slingers and the archers went before the army. And they that were in the front were all men of valor. And Bacchides was in the right wing, and the legion drew near on two sides, and they sounded the trumpets. And they also that were on Judas's side, even they also cried out, and the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle was fought from morning even unto evening. And Judas perceived that the stronger part of the army of Bacchides was on the right side, and all the stout of heart came together with him, and the right wing was discomfited by them, and he pursued them even to the Mount Azotus. And they that were in the left wing saw that the right wing was discomfited, and they followed after Judas, and them that were with him at their backs. And the battle was hard fought, and there fell many wounded of the one side and of the other, and Judas was slain, and the rest fled away. Burial of Judas. And Jonathan and Simon took Judas their brother, and buried him in a sepulchre of their fathers in the city of Modin. And all the people of Israel bewailed him with great lamentation, and they mourned for him many days, and said, How is it the mighty man fallen that saved the people of Israel? But the rest of the words of the wars of Judas, and the noble acts that he did, and of his greatness, are not written, for they are very, very many. The oppression of Bacchides. And it came to pass after the death of Judas that the wicked began to put forth their heads in all confines of Israel, and all the workers of iniquity rose up. In those days there was a very great famine, and they and all their country yielded to Bacchides, and Bacchides chose the wicked men and made them lords of the country. And they sought out and made diligent search after the friends of Judas, and brought them to Bacchides. And he took vengeance of them, and abused them. And there was a great tribulation in Israel, such was not since the day, and there was no prophet seen in Israel. Jonathan succeeds Judas. And all the friends of Judas came together and said to Jonathan, Since thy brother Judas died, there is not a man like him to go forth against our enemies, Bacchides, and them that are the enemies of our nation. Now therefore we have chosen thee this day to be our prince and captain in his stead, to fight our battles. So Jonathan took upon him the government at that time, and rose up in the place of Judas his brother. Bacchides seeks to seize Jonathan. And Bacchides had knowledge of it, and sought to kill him. And Jonathan and Simon his brother knew it, and all that were with them. And they fled into the desert of Theka, and they pitched by the water of the lake Asphur. And Bacchides understood it, and he came himself with all his army over to the Jordan on the Sabbath day. Jonathan avenges the murder of John. And John sent his brother, a captain of the people, to desire the Nebuthenians, his friends, that they would lend their equipage, which was copious. Equipage is necessary equipment, copious, large in quantity, abundant. And the children of Jambri came forth out of Madobah, and took John and all that he had, and went away with them. River. It's always something. And took forth and John and all that he had, and went away with them. After this it was told Jonathan and Simon his brother that the children of Jambri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride out of Madobah, the daughter of one of the great princes of Canaan, with a great pomp, a stately, magnificent, highly ceremonial display, often featuring grand decor, music, and former rituals. Okay. And they remembered the blood of John their brother, and they went up and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain. And they lifted up their eyes and saw, and behold, a tumult and great preparation. And the bridegroom came forth, and his friends and his brethren, to meet them with timbrels and music instruments and many weapons. And they rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and slew them, and there fell many wounded. And the rest fled into the mountains, and they took all their spoils. And the marriage was turned into mourning, and the noise of their musical instruments into lamentation. And they took revenge for the blood of their brother, and they returned to the bank of the Jordan. Tumult, loud commotion. I didn't know that. Jonathan puts Bacchides to fight, and Bacchides heard it, and he came on the Sabbath day even to the bank of the Jordan with great power. And Jonathan said to his company, "Let us arise and fight against our enemies, for it is not now as yesterday and the day before." That is verse 44, chapter 9, I believe. And Jonathan said to his company, "Let us arise and fight against our enemies, for it is not now as yesterday and the day before. For behold, the battle is before us, and the water of the Jordan on this side and on that side, and banks and marshes and woods, and there is no place for us to turn aside. Now therefore cry ye to heaven, that ye may be delivered from the hand of your enemies." And they joined battle. And Jonathan stretched forth his hand to strike Bacchides, but he turned away from him backwards. And Jonathan and they that were with him leaped into the Jordan, and swam over the Jordan to them. And there fell of Bacchides' side that day 1,000 men, and they returned to Jerusalem. Bacchides builds fortifications. And they built strong cities in Judea, and the fortress that was in Jericho. Jericho, a place of fragrance or scent, due to the city's ancient renown for producing balm and flowers. It's near the Dead Sea, also called the City of the Moon. Okay. And they built strong cities in Judea, the fortress that was in Jericho, and in Amias, and in Betharon, and in Bethel, and in Themanata, and Farah, and Thopa, with high walls and gates and bars. And he placed garrisons in them, and that they might wage war against Israel. And he fortified the city of Bethsura and Gazara and the castle, and set garrisons in them, and provisions of victuals. And he took the sons of the chief men of the country for hostages, and put them in the castle of Jerusalem in custody. Okay, that was a lot of names. I'll just say, so Emmaus, hot spring or warm bath. Bethron, house of hollow, so like a cave, or house of Horon is what it said. Bethel, house of God. Thamata, God has heard or listened. Farah, great house or palace. While it originally referred to the royal residence, it became the title for Egyptian monarchs, often representing a figure of unbridled ego, power, or defiance against divine will in biblical context. Thapo, a place of location, region, or opportunity. However, in Greek, tapo is sometimes used in the New Testament to refer to specific places known by their Hebrew names, such as Golgotha, the place of skull, Gabbatha, the stone pavement, and Armageddon. So, I don't know. It's just what it said. Anyway. The death of Alchemius. Why didn't I look up that name? Alchemius. What a name, huh? There's been a lot of distractions. Now in the year 153, the second month, Alchemius commanded the walls of the inner court of the sanctuary to be thrown down and the works of the prophets to be destroyed, and he began to destroy. At that time, Alchemius was struck and workers were hindered, and this month was stopped, and he was taken with a palsy, so that he could no more speak a word nor give order concerning his house. And Alchemius died at that time in great torment. Bacchides plots to seize Jonathan. And Bacchides saw that Alchemius was dead, and he returned to the king, and and the land was quiet for 2 years. And all the wicked held a council, saying, Behold, Jonathan, they that are with him dwell at ease and without fear. Now therefore let us bring Bacchides hither, and he shall take them all in one night. So they went and gave him counsel, and he arose to come with a great army, and sent secretly letters to his adherents that were in Judea to seize upon Jonathan and them that were with him, but they could not, for their design was known to them. And he apprehended of the men of the country that were the principal authors of the mischief 50 men, and slew them. And Jonathan and Simon and they that were with him retired to Bethsbessen, which is in the desert. And he repaired the breaches thereof, and they fortified it. Simon defeats Bacchides. When Bacchides knew it, he gathered together all the multitude and sent word to them that were in Judea. And he came and camped above Bethsben, and fought against it many days, and made engines. But Jonathan left his brother Simon in the city, and went forth into the country, and came with a number of men. And he struck Odaris and his brethren, and the children of Pharisieron in their tents, and he began to slay and increase in forces. But Simon and they that were with him sailed out of the city, and burnt engines, and they fought against Bacchides, and he was discomfited by them, and they afflicted him exceedingly, for his counsel and his enterprise was in vain. Jonathan and Bacchides make peace. And he was angry with the wicked men that had given him counsel to come into their country, and he slew many of them, and he proposed to return with the rest of their country. And Jonathan had known of it, and he sent ambassadors to him to make peace with him, and to restore to him the prisoners. And he accepted it willingly, and did according to his words, and swore that he would do him no harm all the days of his life. And he restored to him the prisoners which he before had taken out of the land of Judea. And he returned and went away into his own country, and he came no more into their borders. And so the sword ceased, and Jonathan began there to judge the people, and he destroyed the wicked out of Israel. Chapter 10. Alexander the Illustrious at Ptolemais. Now in the 160th year, Alexander the son of Antiochus, surnamed the Illustrious, came up and took Ptolemais, and they received him, and he reigned there. And King Demetrius heard of it, and gathered together an exceeding great army, and went forth against him to fight. Demetrius seeks Jonathan as his ally. And Demetrius sent a letter to Jonathan with peaceable words to magnify him. For he said, Let us first make a peace with him before we make one with Alexander against us. For he will remember all the evils that we have done against him, and against his brother, and against his nation. And he gave him authority to gather together an army, and to make arms, and that he should be his confederate. And the hostages that were in the castle he commanded to be delivered to him. Jonathan rebuilds Jerusalem. And Jonathan came to Jerusalem and read the letters in the hearing of all the people and of them that were in the castle. And they were struck with great fear, because they heard the king had given him authority to gather together an army. And the hostages were delivered to Jonathan, and he restored them to their parents. And Jonathan dwelt in Jerusalem and began to build and to repair the city. And he ordered workmen to build the walls and Mount Sion round about with square stones for fortification. So they did. And the strangers that were in the strongholds with Bacchides had built fled away, and every man left his place and departed into his own country. Only Bethsura there remained some of them that had forsaken the law and the commandments of God. So for this was a place of refuge for them. Alexander appoints Jonathan high priest. And King Alexander heard of the promises that Demetrius had made Jonathan, and they told him of the battles and the worthy acts that he and his brethren had done, and the labors that they had endured. And he said, "Shall we find such another man? Now therefore we will make him our friend and our confederate." So he wrote a letter and sent it to him according to these words, saying, "King Alexander and his brother Jonathan, greeting. We have heard of thee that thou art a man of great power and fit to be our friend. Now therefore we make thee this day high priest of the nation, and that thou be called the king's friend." And he sent him a purple robe and a crown of gold, and that thou be of one mind with us in our affairs, and keep friendship with us. And then Jonathan put on the holy vestment in the 7th month. Then Jonathan put on the holy vestment in the 7th month in the year 160 at the feast day at Tabernacles, and he gathered together an army and made a great number of arms. Demetrius seeks friendship of the Jews. And Demetrius heard these words and was exceeding sorry, and said, "What is this that we have done, that Alexander hath prevented us to gain the friendship of the Jews to strengthen himself? And I also will write to them words of request and offer dignities and gifts, that they may be with me to aid me." And he wrote to them in these words, "King Demetrius, to the nation of the Jews, greetings. Whereas you have kept covenant with us and have continued in our friendship and have not joined with our enemies, we have heard of it and are glad. Wherefore now continue still to keep fidelity towards us, and we will reward you with good things for what you have done in our behalf. And we will remit to you many charges, and will give you gifts. And now I free you and all the Jews from tributes, and I release you from the customs of salt and raiment, the crowns, and the third of the seed, and the half of the fruit of trees, which is my share, I leave to you from this day forward, so that it shall not be taken out of the land of Judah, and of the 3 cities that are headed thereto, out of Samaria and Galilee, from this day forth and forever. And let Jerusalem be holy and free with the borders thereof, and let the tents and tributes be for itself. I yield up also the power of the castle that is in Jerusalem, and I give it to the high priest to place therein such men as he shall choose to keep it. And every soul of the Jews that hath been carried captive from the land of Judah and all my kingdom I set at liberty freely, that all be discharged from tributes, even of our castle. And I will that all the feasts and Sabbaths and the new moons and the days appointed, and 3 days before the solemn days and 3 days after the solemn days, be all days of immunity and freedom for all the Jews that are in my kingdom. And no man shall have power to do anything against them, or to molest any of them in any case. And let there be enrolled in the king's army to the number of 30,000 of the Jews. An allowance shall be made them as is due to all the king's forces, and certain of them shall be appointed to be in the fortress of the great king. And some of them shall be set over the affairs of the kingdom that are of trust. And let the governors be taken from among themselves, and let them walk in their own laws. And the king hath commanded in the land of Judah, as the king has commanded in the land of Judah. Out of the country of Samaria let them be accounted with Judea, and they may be under one, and obey no other authority but that of the high priest. Ptolemaeus and the confines thereof I give as a free gift to the holy place, places that are in Jerusalem for the necessary charges of the holy things, and I give every year 15,000 sickles, slices, sickles of silver out of the king's account of what belongs to me, and all that is above, which they that were over the affairs the years before had not paid. From this time they shall give it to the works of the house. Moreover, the 5,000 sickles of silver, which they received from the account of the holy places, every year shall also be to the priests that execute the ministry. And whoever shall flee into the temple that is in Jerusalem, and in all the borders thereof, being indebted to the king for any matter, let them be set at liberty, and all that they have in the kingdom, let them have it free. For the building also, or repairing the works of the holy places, the charges shall be given out of the king's revenues. For the building also of the walls of Jerusalem, and the fortifying thereof round about, the charges shall be given out of the king's account, and also for building of the walls in Judea. The Jews recite the offers of Demetrius. Now when Jonathan and the people heard these words, they gave no credit to them, nor received them, because they remembered the great evil that had been done in Israel, for he had afflicted them exceedingly, and their inclinations were towards Alexander, because he had been the chief promoter of peace in their regard, and him they always helped. Demetrius defeated by Alexander and slain. And King Alexander gathered together a great army and moved his camp near Demetrius, and the two kings joined battle. And the army of Demetrius fled away, and Alexander pursued after him and pressed them close, and the battle was fought hard till the sun went down, and Demetrius was slain that day. Alexander seeks to marry Cleopatra. And Alexander sent ambassadors to Ptolemy, king of Egypt, with words to this effect, saying, Forasmuch as I am returned into my kingdom, I am set in the throne of my ancestors, and have gotten the dominion, and have overthrown Demetrius, and possessed our country, and have joined battle with him, and both he and his army have been destroyed by us, and we are in place. Sorry. What? And have joined battle with him, and both he and his army have been destroyed by us, and we are placed in the throne of his kingdom. Now therefore let us make friendship with one another, and give us now thy daughter to wife, and I will be thy son-in-law, and I will give both thee and her gifts worthy of thee. Alexander marries Cleopatra. King Ptolemy answered, saying, Happy is the day when thou didst return to the land of thy fathers, and sattest in the throne of their kingdom. And now I will do to thee as thou hast written. But meet me at Ptolemais, that we may see one another, and I may give her to thee as thou hast said. So Ptolemy went out to Egypt with Cleopatra his daughter, and he came to Ptolemais in the 162nd year, and King Alexander met him, and he gave him his daughter Cleopatra, and he celebrated her marriage at Ptolemais with great glory, after the manner of kings. The king honors Jonathan. And King Alexander wrote to Jonathan that he should come and meet him. And he went honorably to Ptolemais, and he met there the two kings, and he gave them much silver and gold and presents, and he found favor in their sight. And some pestilent men of Israel, men of wicked life, assembled themselves against him to accuse him, and the king gave no heed to them. And he commanded that Jonathan's garments should be taken off, and that he should be clothed with purple, and they did so. And the king made him sit by himself, and he said to his princes, Go out with him into the midst of the city, and make proclamation that no man complain against him of any manner, and that no man should for any manner of cause. I need to blow my nose. Why? Am I allergic to you, River? What is going on? I have any boogers? Okay, we're good. Oh, look at all that dust flying off you when you shake like that. Here, look. That's River. Say hi. He's so happy about giving me the sniffles. It's hard not to be happy when you're that cute. Hi, River. Just hair flying everywhere. I could see it glowing in the light. Jeez, man. What's going on? Okay. Okay. And he commanded that Jonathan's garments should be taken off and that he should be clothed with purple, and they did so. And the king made him sit by himself, and he said to his princes, "Go out with him into the midst of the city and make proclamation that no man complain against him of any manner, and that no man trouble him of any manner of cause." And when his accusers saw his glory proclaimed and him clothed with purple, they all fled away. And the king magnified him and enrolled him amongst his chief friends and made him governor and partaker of his dominion. And Jonathan returned into Jerusalem with peace and joy. Alexander fears the younger Demetrius. In the year 167, Demetrius, the son of Demetrius... Oh, my head's cut off. Demetrius, the son of Demetrius... Okay, Crete... Oh, Demetrius, the son of Demetrius, came from Crete into the land of his fathers, and King Alexander heard of it and was much troubled and returned to Antioch. Apollonius challenges Jonathan. Can you go scratch somewhere else, please? Come on. And King Demetrius made Apollonius his general, who was... Those cats are giving me fleas. Where? Stay focused. Stop. You could spray organic flea stuff on the dog later, Liz. Sometimes I talk to myself. I'm not crazy. See what I mean about distractions? This is the best one, though. At least I reason with this one. Okay. I'll just start that again. Apollonius challenges Jonathan. And King Demetrius made Apollonius his general, who was governor of Caesarea, and he gathered together a great army and came to Jamnia, and he sent to Jonathan the high priest, saying, "Thou alone standest against us, and I am laughed at and reproached, because thou showest thy power against us in the mountains. Now therefore, if thou truest in thy forces, come down to us into the plain, and there let us try one another, for with me is the strength of war. Ask and learn who I am, and the rest that help me, who also say that your foot cannot stand before our face. For thy fathers have twice been put to fight in their own land, and now how will thou be able to abide the horsemen and so great an army in the plain, where there is no stone, nor rock, nor place to flee to?" Jonathan defeats Apollonius. Now when Jonathan heard the words of Apollonius, he was moved in his mind, and he chose 10,000 men and went out of Jerusalem. And Simon his brother... I think I could pause this. I am going to get this dog out of here. It's too much. He has a flea problem. I'm going to put some... spray on him in a little bit. But I just realized I could pause the video. Why am I still ranting? Just do it. Okay, I'm back. He's staring at me through the glass now with his little sad puppy eyes. Anyways, Jonathan defeats Apollonius. Now when Jonathan heard the words of Apollonius, and now he's crying. Can I just sit in a box somewhere? Now when Jonathan heard the words of Apollonius, he was moved in his mind, and he chose 10,000 men and went out of Jerusalem, and Simon his brother met him to help him, and they pitched their tents near Joppe. I didn't write that. That's okay. I probably take too many notes on things that only I find interesting anyway. And he laid siege to it, and they that were in the city, being affrighted Ephraim opened the gates to him. So Jonathan took Joppe, and Apollonius heard of it, and he took 3,000 horsemen and a great army, and he went to Azotus as one that was making a journey, and immediately he went forth into the plain, because he had a great number of horsemen, and he trusted in them. And Jonathan followed after him to Azotus, and they joined battle. And Apollonius left privately in the camp 1,000 horsemen behind them. And Jonathan knew that there was an ambush behind him, and they surrounded his army and cast darts at the people from morning till evening. But the people stood still as Jonathan had commanded them, and so their horses were fatigued. Then Simon drew forth his army and attacked the legion, for the horsemen were wearied, and they were discomfited by him and fled. And they that were scattered about the plain fled into Azotus and went into Beth Dagon, their idol's temple, there to save themselves. But Jonathan set fire to Azotus and the cities that were round about it, and took the spoils of them and the temple of Dagon, and all them that were fled into it he burnt with fire. And so that they were slain by the sword with them that were burnt were almost 8,000 men. And Jonathan removed his army from thence and camped against Askelon. That kind of sounds like Escalon. I used to live there. Askelon. And they went out of the city to meet him with great honor. And Jonathan returned into Jerusalem with his people, having many spoils. So I didn't finish doing. I'm reading further than I researched. And I'm going to go back and look up Dagon and Beth Dagon. I'm curious what that means. Alexander gives presents to Jonathan. And it came to pass that when Alexander the king heard these words, that he honored Jonathan yet more. And he sent him a buckle of gold, as the custom is, to be given as such as are of the royal blood. And he gave him Acheron and all the borders thereof in possession. Ptolemy invades Syria, and the king of Egypt gathered together an army like the sand that lieth upon the seashore, and many ships, and he sought to get the kingdom of Alexander by deceit, and join it to his own kingdom. And he went out into Syria with peaceable words, and they opened to him the cities, and met him, for King Alexander had ordered them to go forth and meet him, because he was his father-in-law. Jonathan receives Ptolemy. Now when Ptolemy entered into the cities, he put garrisons of soldiers in every city. And when he came near to Azotus, he showed him the temple of Dagon that was burnt with fire, and Azotus and the suburbs thereof that were destroyed, and the bodies that were cast abroad, and the graves of them that were slain in battle, which they had made near the way. And they told the king that Jonathan had done these things to make him odious. But the king held his peace, and Jonathan came to meet the king at Joppe with glory, and they saluted one another, and they lodged there. And Jonathan went with the king as far as the river called Eleutherius, and he returned into Jerusalem. So the next section is Ptolemy defeats Alexander. This is chapter 11, verse 8 is where it'll start, and I'm going to put this on the next video, which I'm going to record today, but I don't want to do too much in one video. I don't want people to get bored and leave, and I want to look up some of these words as well. So until next time, in 30 minutes. Bye.